Hey, hope you're having a good day and welcome back to the Holistic Health Podcast. Today I'm joined by Robbie Miller from Miller Fitness, and Robbie and I have been working together for the past couple of months. Robbie has been supporting our clients at Coach Elan. He's been running some of the yoga meditation classes as well as some strength and fitness classes. And yeah, really looking forward to having a chat today, and we'll go through a bunch of different things. Before we get into it, Robbie, how's your day going so far?
Yeah, it's good, man. Thank you so much, obviously, for having me here today. It's awesome to be on any sort of a podcast, especially this one. So, thank you first and foremost. Yeah, good day, good day. It's been busy, but sun is out, so I feel like spring is springing, and I feel like summer is fingers crossed getting closer. So
Yeah, coming soon. No, it makes such a difference, especially, I don't know about you, but mood-wise for me, especially the wintertime with lack of sunshine, it really affects me. I know a lot of people have seasonal affective disorder, and I don't know if I specifically have that, but I just notice a big shift to my mood, especially now, like you said, coming into spring, more sunshine, longer days. The clocks just went forward there a couple of days ago, so definitely makes a
it
big
is. It's such a tough thing, I think, for everybody because. I just don't think as humans we're built for those kind of really dark, long winters, and it really does get in on us mentally. Like, I mean, I think like that is definitely a real thing, 'cause you see the difference with people maybe that live in Australia and stuff, and like they don't obviously have long nights and stuff, and they are obviously up at like the crack of dawn, and then they go to sleep like really early. So be interesting to see the kind of dynamic, like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I noticed a difference. Like, I lived in Barcelona before for 3 months back in 2022, and it's actually warm, sunny, most unbelievable bright blue skies I've ever seen in my life. And it's like mood-wise, helps so much. So, still happy to be back in Ireland now, but it's just missing. Like so many people say it, like if it was sunny in Ireland on a regular basis, it'd be the best country ever, right?
I think it's just if we could plan stuff, like if we could actually say, I'll meet someone on this date and let's do like a barbecue or something without like having to put up the umbrella, like in order to
Yeah.
stand over it while you're cooking, it'd be great. Like,
Yeah, I've seen a funny video before, and it was like three or four guys, and they're out at the barbecue, and it's literally like a storm and like crazy heavy rain, and one of the lads is like holding up the barbecue while one of them is cooking. And like,
cooking.
yeah, welcome to Ireland.
I think it's the only way probably to do the barbecue in Ireland anyway. So,
Yeah, for sure. But it'd be good to go through a few different things today. Definitely get into, more of your story and how you
yeah.
got into setting up Miller Fitness and how you got even into the fitness side of things and what your journey is about. Because I think it's super interesting going into, looking behind the curtain and seeing people's stories because we only see so much, like on social media and a lot of the time we see people's highlight reels and all the good stuff that goes on, but we never really see the real stuff that goes on behind the scenes, So it'd be good to
Yeah.
do that. And like, so what was kind of the initial thing that got you into, setting up Miller Fitness or going that kind of down that route?
Yeah, I suppose for me, like my kind of life and my background has been, from school onwards, like I wasn't the most academic in school, and I think I always had like a problem with like authority and stuff, and I just could never really like, hone in on being told what to do. But I just think the education system in Ireland specifically, or was when I was in school, wasn't great. And I think when the likes of myself needed that bit of extra help, it just wasn't quite there. But as life kind of went on, I kind of was working in different jobs. I was in retail, I was in restaurants, bars, ended up in offices. I was doing sales, recruitment, and just every time I was in a job, I just always felt like I'm in the wrong place. You just have that feeling of I'm not doing something fulfilling in life. I was like, I worked in an insurance company and like, I used to like look after people's like insurance policies and like, some people would retire and then they die the next day. And I'm like, that's just not living for me. Like, getting so many weeks off or holidays, all that. Like, I was like, there's a whole world out there. You only get one life potentially. And, it's just that whole thing of that just for me, there was always more. I was like, I'm definitely here for a higher purpose. I'm here for a different reason. And like, Yeah, I think just, I done my certs in fitness, and I think for me it was just I didn't really know what to do with them. I ended up falling back into the office world for another year because I just got so nervous about like, taking that leap of faith and really going for it. So but yeah, like kind of long story short, with the Miller Fitness side of it, I just took a gamble. I jacked in all of the recruitment side, the sales side, and I was like, right, I'm gonna give this a go. Thankfully, I have like a really good support system. So like my family were on board. They were like, look, do what makes you happy. I had a really good collection of friends around me who like, one of them like his name's Rory, he's like a graphic designer. He like gave me like so much help. Like he like helped me make a business plan, my logo, like everything that is Miller Fitness today, like came from him. And sitting with him one day in Ranelagh in a hotel, just chatting, and he was like, I always remember he said to me, he was like, "If you're gonna do this, just go for it." And I was like, right, I'm doing this, and I'm not looking back. So, and I haven't, and my other best mate Mike's been a massive help. We've really sat and we've really like, he's very honest with me, very like, why are you doing this? Why not do that? And it's very like pushing through. And as I say, like the family's been amazing. Like my main rock obviously has been Sean and my girlfriend. Like she, no matter on my good days or bad days, like like she's just always there for me, and she's been a massive help with everything that has happened up to this point, and will obviously help further. So I think getting into this aspect, I think you'll probably agree with me. The social media side of it is just so toxic. Like I literally only seen something yesterday that is just, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a guy that rang into a Irish radio station, and he was basically giving out about girls wearing bikinis in the gym when they're just wearing their active wear, and it's like that really misogynistic mentality, and like these like, programs that people are going on, people are ending up with eating disorders. And I just felt like there was so much crap out there that I was like, I want to bring that holistic approach like yourself, what you're doing, and really help people to have a sustainable long-term life in terms of, do you want to be 40 or 50 with your kids and be able to run around the park? Do you want to be able to pick up the shopping and bring it into the house? Do you want to be 60 and in a wheelchair? It's really about understanding your body, understanding like the different aspects. Obviously, what we'll talk about with how I've gotten into holistic fitness, and then I brought that into yoga and Reiki and everything else that I do. But
Mhm.
it was just so it was just something that just really spoke to me. And I was like, if I'm going to do fitness, I don't want to be your typical transformation coach and all that other stuff, which is fine for people that want to do that. And, people that do bodybuilding and all those different competitions, like fair play. That just wasn't for me personally.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's really cool, to hear the origin story, and there's such like an evolution for a lot of people as well. Because and I'll be completely honest, like when I first started working with people, I was really interested in powerlifting at the time. So then when I
Fair.
started doing one-to-one personal training with a lot of people back in like 2017, 2018, I enjoyed powerlifting. So then I was getting them to do powerlifting style training, not the
Mm.
exact same, but the usual, oh, we have to do squat, bench, deadlift, kind of more of a rigid approach. And then the same as well with like I used to do transformation photos, but then gradually over time as I've evolved, I've moved away from, anything to do with like powerlifting and bodybuilding. They're great sports for sure, but just not what I'm interested in. Like you said, taking a holistic approach. And now I'm much more of like, okay, if you would like to do photos and you want to do comparisons, absolutely, we can do that. You can keep the photos for yourself. You don't have to share them with me. It's a very personal, private thing. You definitely do not have to share them on social media. No way. But a lot of the time, a lot of people just end up going, they'd rather do measurements, they'd rather see comparisons in their clothes. They don't need to take photos. And so it's a real like evolution, I think, that we go through, over the years for sure. Um, but yeah, really great to hear like how you got into it. And it's always, I find it really interesting when you kind of transition from somewhere else. Like you said, you were working insurance and doing different jobs.
Mm.
It's I think it's actually really hard to transition. If you work, let's say, regular 9 to 5 jobs, and then you go to wanting to be self-employed, that's a very, very hard transition to make because you're trading security of a salary to, oh shit, I don't know what's happening next month because it's going to depend on, am I going to be running the classes for someone? Am I going to have clients join? Am I going to have clients leave? It's literally the roller coaster. So I want to officially welcome you to the roller coaster. I know you've been doing it a while now, but yeah, the roller coaster continues because I've been doing it for 8 years and it's like that up and down. But gradually over time it gets a little bit more secure, but
Yeah,
it's never perfect or plain sailing.
no, definitely not. But I think that's what makes it exciting sometimes as well. And like that, coming from your typical Monday to Friday, I was getting me salary every month, and like it's great, but like money isn't everything. I know, like we obviously all need to make a living. We all have overheads, bills to pay, but I'm like at the end of the day, like financial freedom is probably like on the top of everybody's list. Everybody wants to be able to go off and do anything at any time. I just think for me, I was like, I need to try something different, and I needed to, get into a gym, and I needed to be like, a personal trainer, and I wanted to start from the bottom and understand what it was like to be there, and to understand to be, working on Saturdays, working late nights, doing all these things that I hadn't done in years. And then, your first couple of shifts, you're like up at 5:30 and you're opening the gym for 6 in the morning, and you're like sitting there absolutely cross-eyed because like this is not normal to you, it became a process now. I'm not saying it became easy. It's definitely not easy. Like it's hard getting up at that hour in the morning. But I think as the time went by and I actually started to appreciate what I was doing, I think there was that sense of like being up early and like being ahead of like the day, that kind of way. I don't know if you found that when you were working in the gym, but like your day was finished at like 10:30 and you were kind of like, oh, now I have the whole day to, maybe sleep, catch up on things, do your own stuff, train. And, so there was obviously pros and cons to everything. Like,
Yeah, no, for sure I can relate. And I think you said before were you doing split shifts sometimes as well? So you were doing like really early morning, like 5:30 start, work till like midday, break for a few hours, then back for the evening. Were you doing that for a while?
yeah. So one of the places I was working, yeah. So like, now that wasn't all the time, to be fair. Like, it was rare enough, but there was some days where you'd start at 6 in the morning, you'd finish at 10:30, and you'd still be on site till about 12:30, that kind of way. And then the next crew would come in the afternoon. So you were leaving at about 2, 2:30, like you were cross-eyed by that time. And I think for me personally, I think your levels of coaching drop because you're so tired at that point, and you're trying to obviously refuel with like your food you've maybe made the night before, or you've forgotten, and then you're going, oh shit, now I've nothing to have and refuel with. So it was definitely tough. Like, I think something like that was really tough
Hmm.
because like the hours that were involved, the intensity levels, you were coaching back to back to back to back. The classes were just non-stop, and like that's a lot mentally, and I think I've had that with people. They were like, "Oh, sure, it's grand for you finishing on your half day." And I'm like, I don't think people realize that, I always found people thought I lived in the gym. They'd just come in and be like, "Oh, you're still here." And I'm like, well, this is where I work, like, or I think just people think that you are there all the time, but
Yeah.
you're fine. Whereas you're like knackered and slowly dying inside because you're on class number 5 and Mary's asking you the same question again, and you're going, that's not actually a real Mary. That's just an example that we all use in Ireland. But yeah.
No, I totally get it because like one of the big learning curves I had initially was like the first like year and a half, I got completely burnt out because I was like, okay, I just need to work all the hours because I just set up my business. I was working in the gym on Leeson Street. And it's weird. Like my problem is not being able to work enough. It's like the ability to actually pull back, which is weird. Like some people are the opposite, but obviously everyone's different. So I was literally just like, okay, if I want to make this work, I'd be waking up at like 5:30 a.m. It didn't help. I was following like Jocko Willink and David Goggins at the time. So I was constantly seeing them on Instagram posting a photo of their watch. And it was like 3:55 a.m. up and at it, this kind of stuff. So I just got completely burnt out because I was literally waking up any time between like 5, 6, get to the gym, whatever, 6:30, and then just stay in the gym all day long. And there was even a few times before where like maybe I'd be working from like 6:30 until like maybe like 10 p.m. But then I'd hit a wall, like you said, maybe around 2 or 3, try and push through it. And I remember one time specifically, I had a session booked for like I think 5 or 5:30, and I was absolutely wrecked. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna have a quick nap, just like 10 minutes or something. And I put down some mats on the floor, and I lie down, close my eyes, and then I woke up, and the lady that I was training at the time, she woke me up because she walked in and she was like, she's like, are you okay? I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was literally passed out asleep because I thought I set my alarm for 10 minutes later. But I was so wrecked that I forgot to. So those are the things that easily happen. That didn't happen again, thankfully. I was like, okay, this is a sign I need to like stop working like 70, 80 hours a week because it's not going to end up well. Long story short, I ended up having like a bit of a breakdown because like had a first time ever in my life had a panic attack. That's what triggered me to start therapy, started a lot of healing from there. But I kind of had to go through that, craziness for a while to be like, okay, I'm not like invincible. I have to pull back a bit. So it's
Absolutely.
definitely, it's I think a part of the journey as well. You just learn as you go, and then you kind of figure out like, oh yeah, that isn't really what I should be doing or wasn't making me feel too good. So what changes do I need to make?
Yeah, and I think I was the same as you. I think when I kind of first started working in the gym, a lot of people were like, "Don't say yes to everybody," but you felt like if you didn't say yes, that next opportunity wasn't going to come. And then
Mm.
before you knew it, you were out the door with clients. You were doing so many hours, and then you were just absolutely passed out in the office. I've been there. I've also been there. I'm sure there's many trainers that are probably watching this have been there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was like over the last few years. So you were working in the gym, you were doing that, but then that didn't feel like it was the right thing for you. So now you've kind of moved into the next stage of obviously you've been doing like I said earlier, a lot of yoga meditation with a lot of the ladies that we work with, been getting so much good feedback on that. Doing some strength and fitness stuff. I know you're running some classes as well in different places around Dublin, and so it'd be cool to kind of chat a bit about that and kind of take a dive into philosophy and yoga and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And like, yeah, and that was kind of the thing about it was like when I stepped away from like the gym floor, it was the case of understanding where I wanted to go with everything. And, I was doing well with the online coaching side of it, and I still am, which is great, and I'm obviously, taking clients every now and then on, certain intakes and stuff. And yeah, and then I kind of, yeah, I went to Sallynoggin College, shout out Sallynoggin. It's a great college for the yoga teacher training. So my teacher now still, Aoife Driver, like she's absolutely incredible. She just really brought the philosophy of yoga and made it really interesting because I'd be someone that I'd find things really hard to kind of pick up at times. But I find when it's done in a certain way, like just learning made fun, practical use. But the college was amazing. They were so supportive, and like that kind of just opened up a whole new world for me. I think when I went to do like my Reiki level one, people were like, "You're gonna start seeing the world different," and I was like, "What does that even mean?" And then you really do, like, you really start to understand people, and you start to take a step back, and you really start to kind of, you know, like everybody when I done it, were like, "You've gotten so much more zen, so much more calm in yourself," and I was like. Have I? I don't know. Like I always felt like I was laid back anyway, but yeah, I done my Reiki level one and two, then with my Reiki master Kira as well, and she's been a massive part of my journey, So it's all these different people, different role models in your life that really support your journey with what you're doing. So like what I've decided to do then, I've brought all of this into coaching aspects. So I have different clients now that will have their plans in the gym, but they'll also contact me and be like, listen, can you do me up a meditation? Can you do me up a breath work? And can you send me a yoga, a couple of moves, for a sore back or whatever it might be? And then it kind of just developed then. And I do yoga teaching over in Clondalkin, which is just over the way from me here, on a Tuesday tonight, actually at 7. And I hold monthly events up in a place called Mutton Lane. It's just up the back of Braddon there. And I do like yin yoga. So like there's all these different aspects that I've been doing, which has been amazing, And I take Reiki clients in person. I go to people's houses, or I have a space as well. So it's just all these different things and all these different levels, and then you're collabing with people, and it's just, I think when you really find something you're really passionate about, I think the main thing for me was I've always wanted to help people. I just never really knew how. But the fact that I've actually found this like umbrella now that I can put everything together and utilize it all for everyone, it's just such a special feeling.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. I think it'd be good to dive in, obviously yoga as well, but for sure the Reiki. So my understanding of Reiki anyway is I literally did one session before, so correct me if I'm wrong,
No,
but
go for it.
to me it felt like a mixture between meditation and therapy. That's kind of what the mix was because it was like an hour and a bit long session and definitely made me question a few things and also helped me feel pretty good afterwards. So I thought it was that mixture, but do you feel like it's something else or is it something else or how would you describe it?
I feel like it's special to everybody that does it, and I think everybody gets something different from it. And what I have kind of found for myself, like Reiki for me, is that like if I'm doing it for someone, I am the channel of energy that comes through me to that person. So like, you might receive like visual images, you might receive messages. Now, I've never received messages from people, but like I've seen things and I've relayed this back to people, and they're like, "Oh my God!" And you'll chat about things like that, but yeah, like it is therapeutic. Obviously, there's different practices. There's Ayurvedic practices and different ways of going about it. But I just think for me with Reiki, it's very hard to explain, is what I find. It's such a special thing that unless you've done it, I think people think it's a bit woo-woo and it's a bit out
Yeah.
there. And it's they're like, what you mean? Like, how am I going to feel better after? It's like
Yeah.
I think it's just being allowed to go into a space where you get blankets put on you, you get nice and warm, there's incense, there's maybe like a little fountain, kind of, the trickling of water, and you're just basically being told you're in a safe space. And like everybody's always said it to me about my hands, they get so warm and like the heat that comes off them. But like, I don't know what it is. It's just like it's a spiritual and it's an energetic connection between, and it's not even between you and the person. It's you are the channel, and it comes down through you to them. So they're getting what they're meant to be receiving, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, like you said, to a lot of people it comes across as very woo-woo, and it's
Yeah.
like just don't judge it until you go and do it. Same as anything, like you might not be a fan of certain types of training, but it's like there's no point judging it until you go and try and do it. And if you do it, you may enjoy it, and if you enjoy it, great, like continue doing it. But if you didn't like it, at least you tried it and you know. So I think it's a good way to do things for sure.
Yeah.
So with the Reiki 1 and 2, what was the length? Like what were those courses like? Was it like a 3 month process or because I have no idea, like so it'd be really interesting to talk
Yeah. So as I said, here, my Reiki master, she holds them up in Baldonnel, which is just up the road from me here in a lovely, like really beautiful, serene cabin in the forest. But it's literally done over a weekend, like, and she does up these really beautiful booklets, and she teaches you like your lineage and where it came from and how it came about, and it's really welcoming you into the Reiki community, and everybody just felt so connected after the weekend. I was lucky, like the Reiki 1 and 2 weekends that I done, like there's still people that I talk to now.
about.
I feel like that's what it becomes, and it's just, I think it depends on your teacher. Like, I know that's probably a bit biased, but like, anyone that talks to me about doing, I'm like, I'll go to care. Like, it's just anyone that's met her, like, when you just meet someone and they get it, and I just think her as a Reiki master, she just has the special gift that she does. And like, I think it depends on your teacher. I think it depends on how it's taught to you. But yeah, it's just when you leave, I don't know, you get told you're being unlocked and all these different things are gonna happen. And then you really do, you start to see the world differently. And it really is about mindset. Like it's about bringing that positive light and energy to every day as best as we can. I know life gets tough sometimes for people, it gets hard, but I really do believe in manifestation. And if there really is something that you want, like put it out there. Like I'm not saying put it out there and 5 minutes later it's magically gonna happen, but like keep putting it out there, like week after week, throw it out. And the more positive you feel about something, the more it will happen. And I've really found that with myself. And then I found the opposite with myself when there's days where things aren't moving forward. I get stubborn in myself, I get stuck, and then things don't happen. And then the minute that I change, I'm like, oh, it's just it's amazing stuff. Like,
Yeah, no, it's really cool. There's a quote I love. The more I practice, the luckier I get. And
yeah,
I used to play a good bit of golf just for a few years, like 3 years when I was younger. And I think it was Gary Player that said that he's South African. He's really famous in the golf community anyway. But I've actually seen that across the board, multiple sports, multiple successful people, that the more that they practice something, the more that they do it, the luckier, quote unquote, that they get. But it's really nothing to do with luck because it's just like the more hours you put into something, it's like Robert Greene's 10,000 hours for mastery. Have you read that book before?
no, it's on the list.
It's really good. My secret is I just listen to everything via audiobook. I can absorb it much quicker that way. But yeah, 10,000 hours. The book is called Mastery by Robert Greene, and it's a simple thing to remember. It's like generally the people who are the best at what they do have, or masters or whatever you want to call it, they've generally all put at least 10,000 hours into what they've done. And it's like the more
Yeah,
that you do something, the more that you manifest, the more that you think about it, the more that you go out and actually just go and do the thing. You might mess it up, but at least you're going to learn from wherever you messed up, you know? I always think like failures are good lessons of what you need to change so that you can improve going forward, you know? So it's
100%.
definitely more of that like growth mindset. Because a lot of people could look at something, you can look at a failure two different ways. You can look at it as like, oh, I'm terrible, I'm useless, so let's just quit now. There's no point going any further. That's a fixed mindset. But then if you have a growth mindset, you can think of like, okay, this is a good lesson. What can I learn from it? What can I
Yeah.
do going forward? So it sounds like there's a lot of parallels, between things like that and Reiki and so it doesn't have to be woo woo. It's maybe just the way people perceive it.
And I get that, and I get, especially for men, I think men find it very intimidating. They think it's obviously very woo woo. It's very, when I talk to people about it, they're like, do we have to talk about our feelings and stuff? And I'm like, no, like, you can, like, absolutely, please do. Like, we'll probably get into that now in a minute, but like,
Yeah, men and
I just
feelings.
think yeah, it's for everyone, and I think everybody, as you said, try it. If you don't like it, fine, but at least you tried, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. It's so funny. Men and feelings, they're like completely different worlds to each other, right?
I just
It's
think it's that old school mentality of like, and I'd even find it with like my dad. I think in the last whatever amount of time since doing all this, he's really come out of his shell. Now he was always open to chatting about things, but he really opens up to me now about things, and we talk about a lot of spiritual stuff and stuff, which is amazing.
yeah.
And like, he probably would have came from a background where it was get up and get on with it. Don't talk about your feelings. Oh, you're grand, shake it off. That kind of mentality where I think a lot of men out there struggle with it. And I think when they're given permission to do it, there's nearly that fear aspect of, oh, like, is this a trick? Is this a trap? Or, I think there's that psychological element. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, because I know, and myself included, so many men just suffer in silence.
yeah,
And, you've got the voice in your head and you're suffering literally in your own mind. But then the idea of even opening up, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, the idea of vulnerability for men is like, what like universe are you in? Like, there's no way I can allow myself to be vulnerable because if I do, it means that and this is what a lot of people think. This is how I used to think as well. If I allow myself to be vulnerable, that means I'm weak, I'm not good enough. It means that, someone's not going to love me, if I'm vulnerable with my partner or with my friends or so a lot of men I think have those connotations related to it. So then like, okay, it's absolutely impossible. There's no way I can allow myself to say, yeah, I am actually feeling pretty shitty today. Or mentally I just haven't been feeling good recently, or I'm like burnt out, or whatever the feeling is. So I think that's probably going to be a problem for many men for many years to come. And I think it's only going to change as like culture changes and people's perceptions of things change. So
Mhm.
it's probably going to be a very gradual thing, but I think that's why we kind of get on so well because we definitely share a lot of similarities there in terms of the stage that we're at. We're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and just open about things. It doesn't mean oversharing or spilling your problems on everybody, but it's just allowing yourself to be vulnerable when you need to. And yeah, it's super important for sure.
Yeah, totally, totally. And like, I think for me, like, you touched on obviously going to therapy and stuff. I think I was fearful of going to therapy at the start because I was worried about like my main fear was like, is it going to change who I am as a person? And if I open up to this person, will it be used against me? Because I think from anybody that's probably been in like past relationships, be it like platonic with friends or, romantic, I think obviously people have had hard moments and different things happen. So I think your trust obviously needs to be built. But like personally, from going to therapy, like going and being able to work on things where, as much as it's great to talk to your partner or to your family, you're going to talk to someone who is unbiased and they will just sit and listen. They will let you talk for 45 minutes if that's what you need and only give feedback if that's what you need. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's such a beautiful thing in itself. And I think when you create that dynamic, like I always say, everybody should just be in therapy because I honestly think the world would just be such a better place. But I think everybody will get there in their own time and their own journey. But I just honestly think if more people did the work, I just think they'd actually see such a positive side to life rather than now. Like that's obviously I'm sure people have a lot going on. There's a lot of hard stuff going on, but there are little things. Like I even find it when men come to my yoga or come to my breath works and my meditations, and I really try and keep it real for them. But I kind of say, look, give it a chance, open up to it. And the amount of men that I've had come to my stuff and leave and go, oh my God, that was brilliant, and have come back since. And they're like, oh, I didn't even know I could breathe like that. I didn't know I could like actually slow down my mind. Or, like I had a guy in my class and he wouldn't mind me saying this, but like he cried. And he was like, I don't know why I'm crying. And I was like, because you're letting it out. You're letting it go. Like you need to release. Like, I mean, look, we all love a good cry. I think it's the best thing for us, And I think that point you're making about vulnerability, I think if we actually just allow it to happen, we
Mhm.
actually learn more about balancing what's called the masculine and the feminine. And when you bring the two together and try and find the alignment of yourself, I just find it's just such a special place to be. Like,
Yeah, definitely. When you said that about better out than in, it's like that's Shrek's famous quote, isn't it?
yeah.
Except he burped and he didn't cry. I'm pretty sure he cried at some other part of the film.
Yeah, he's allowed.
Yeah, but no, it's so true, honestly. Like there's been a good few times, for me over the last couple of years, specific times I can think of, and I can say it like without shame that I definitely cried after it was because it was a release. And it was definitely the time I can think of straight away after I met up with my dad for the second time. So I met him for the first time when I was 6, and the second
Mm,
time when I was 29, just about a year and a half ago. And that whole holiday, so I went to Crete, for like a week or so with my girlfriend and met my dad
mm,
and, a lot of other family that I'd never even met before my whole life.
yeah.
And I felt like that holiday, it was very emotionally draining, was really good, a lot of ups and downs. But I felt like I was kind of holding it together for the whole holiday. And then I remember like a few days later, I just like sobbing uncontrollably. And then after I was in the car with my girlfriend, and then after about 5 or 10 minutes, I was fine. And then we drove somewhere, and then I started crying again, but I felt happy. Um, and I couldn't really explain it. But then as I had time to kind of process it a bit more over the coming months, I realized that like that had literally been building, for 23 years. And it was just like that was a really good release for me because it was such a kind of like emotionally a huge milestone to meet up with him for a second time. And so it'll probably happen again as well because I'm going to meet up with my dad again and my sisters and stuff this August for a couple of weeks. So it probably will happen again, but it's going to be more happier this time, and
And I think that's the thing with us, isn't it? Like we've had a lot of trauma. I think everybody has trauma from different aspects of life, and the fact that you obviously held on to that for so long, and you had such a like a lovely release. it was hard, obviously, I'm sure at the time.
Yeah.
But as you said, this time now going back, it would be emotional again, but maybe a little bit more positive, I suppose, maybe if you'd agree with that. Or
Oh yeah, for sure. Because the hard part was a year and a half ago. But now I'm actually looking forward to it. Whereas before I was apprehensive, which obviously is normal. So yeah, it'll be more. I enjoyed it last time, but it'll be more enjoyable this time because a lot of that harder stuff is out of the way, you know. So,
yeah, yeah,
but
totally.
yeah, like I can't imagine what it would be like for someone who, like you said, we've all experienced trauma, different things, of varying degrees. But I couldn't imagine what it'd be like for a man or a woman to go into their 30s, their 40s, maybe some in their 50s or 60s, and go their whole life hanging on to a lot of stuff like this. And it's like so heavy. Because I know for me, before I started doing therapy, I literally felt like I had a weight vest on me or like a ball and chain hanging out my ankle that was like
Yeah.
50 kg. And the more I started to do therapy and open up about stuff, the weight was slowly decreasing from 50 to 45 to 40. And eventually, after a few years of working on stuff, getting to the point where maybe it's only like 2 or 3 kg now. It probably never goes fully, but it's
No,
way
yeah,
less than it used to be. So that's kind of the feeling that I experience. But I'd hate for someone to go their whole life where they have that, hanging out with them.
mm,
It's too much to carry for one person, I think.
yeah, it's heavy. And I think if, as you said, if you never do the work, I think that will always, that emotional baggage will always be on you. And like, I think it's a simple thing. I think just talking sometimes is probably the simplest of things. I know sometimes it's hard to find that secure base where you can open up. I'm thankful. Obviously, I have Shauna. Like she's literally my secure base where I can open up about anything. We can chat about anything at all. Like now she's a trainee psychologist, which is
Uh,
massive as well. Like I know I've learned so much from her in the last like I don't know 3 years now, nearly 4 years, and like it's fascinating to see how her mind operates. And like we even done I don't know if you're familiar with cacao ceremonies, but we do cacao ceremonies together. So I bring like the yes, drinking it
literally,
now.
literally drinking it right now.
Love it,
I've
love
been drinking it for the whole time we've been chatting away.
it. Amazing, that's even better. We'll get on to cacao next. But no, but she brings like the therapeutic side where she doesn't do anything because she's not qualified yet in terms of like her practices and stuff, but like just does really beautiful meditations and stuff. And then I bring the like healing side of it and we combine the two and like the impact we've had on people has just been amazing. And I think bringing the two together just really creates such a beautiful aspect, that kind of way. Like,
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree. Like that's why I think having a holistic approach is so important. Like you
mhm,
said there, because if you can cover different angles, because nothing really exists just solely by itself. So like a lot of women that I work with, we can't just work on, their food because if they slept for 5 or 6 hours the night before, they've been sleeping poorly recently, that has a direct effect on your hunger, your cravings, and the choices that you make. So you need to address sleep, food, self-care, managing stress, obviously the fitness and strength side of things as well. Um, and if you're covering all those kind of main 4 or 5 areas, then everything starts to improve. So,
yeah,
that was a big reason why it was really important for me to get you on board to work with some of our clients because you can kind of complete that a little bit more by offering them that side of things, with the yoga with the meditation, um, and it makes it more holistic, which
yeah,
in the long run means that people can make more sustainable changes and obviously feel much better in themselves. And you're really empowering people with important practices like meditation and yoga because it's like a lot of people don't realize how much power there is in them and being able to control your breath and being really in tune with that kind of stuff. It's super important, but a lot of people don't get to that stage in their journey. They might stop at certain points. So yeah,
yeah.
I think it's always going to be very, very important. Um, so it'd be good to, I suppose, talk a bit about the yoga side of things as well. So, what was it like getting into that? Like, did you have to do a certain amount of like hours training, or like how do you even get qualified in something like yoga?
Yeah, so like luckily, like as I said at the start, in Sallynoggin College they had like the 200-hour course, which was amazing. And there was different things built into that, like but your 200 hour is like your first kind of one that you need to get so that you can go off and teach. And then kind of from there, I've kind of done certs online and I've done workshops and different things for like pranayama, which is like different breath work, and I've done like meditations, cacao ceremony facilitator. So like just loads of different things that you can obviously bring into the mix. Um, so like for anyone that's even thinking about becoming a yoga teacher, I would just say obviously very heavily research what you're getting into and what you're getting back, because I feel like there's a lot of courses out there where, like I done like a full term, like in like a college term to do it. And like again, I felt like I didn't have enough time. I wanted more. Like I know some people do them in weekends, which look is fine, but I just think with yoga it's so special. And like I'll sit for hours now and I'll read about like the philosophical side of things, and like I'll go deep into like, the different texts, and it's just fascinating. Like like yoga to people, they're like, I'm going to yoga, but like yoga is just a word. Like asana is actually your movements, pranayama is your breath, and like you've all these different components of like ashtanga, which is 8 limbs, and there's all these different limbs of yoga that like I think if people actually took time to research them, they could actually bring into their lives and actually help improve themselves, that kind of way. So there's
Hmm.
just like there's so much in yoga that like it's just such a powerful tool that like you can take any aspect of it and bring it into your life. It's incredible. Like
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm learning a lot. So so with yoga then, and correct me if I'm wrong, in some places in India and wherever it was originally founded, that was from what I've seen, was it more of like almost a religious practice, or like do you know like where some of the foundations of it come from? Because I think a lot of the words as well come from Sanskrit or something like that.
Sanskrit is the main language, so you have all these different stories where in India they would have had all these different, I suppose, like you would call them mythological components, the mythological people, but like, they would have been handed down these ancient texts to then, basically teach yoga and spread the word kind of thing of what it is. And yeah, and I find that fascinating with that dynamic, because when it started, only men were allowed to do it. And when you kind of look at it now being westernized, it's like it's very heavily with women, and
Yeah.
it's incredible the dynamic of how it's shifted. And you have your different classes where some of them are in shalas, you have your different yoga studios where you have different very top brands that would be heavily involved with promoting it and stuff. And I think there's both sides of the coin. I think both of it is helping people, which is great. Like obviously I find it fascinating the whole Indian concept where it started off with men, and then you would have your guru and you would go to India and live with your guru if you were lucky enough for months on end, and like they would teach you from like 3 4 in the morning, and you would do 3 4 hour practices, and that would include your movements. Then you might do breath work as well. So there's a lot in it, like, and that's why I'm saying, like, even just talking about Sanskrit, you could talk, like, we could do a whole podcast on Sanskrit alone. There's just so much involved that I'd love for people to really kind of really tune in a little bit more to what yoga is, rather than I'm just going to my yoga class because I need to move and stretch and be flexible. And it's like, that's not what it's just about, and it's like there's just so much deeper meaning to it. Like for me anyway, I know people are probably watching it being like, I like me classes and I'm happy, and that's fine, but I just please just try and go a bit deeper, just a little bit.
Yeah, there's always going to be a section or a percentage of people who would like to delve a bit deeper into it for sure. And I think it's so funny as well. Like, if if you were teaching a yoga class, actually, what have you noticed recently? How many men, like if 10 women come to a class, how many men would be there on average, or like what have you seen?
Oh, minimum probably like, or maximum probably like two.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you're lucky. If you're lucky, like
Yeah. I think that this, and that's another example of how like a lot of men have this like uh this idea that there's certain things that we shouldn't do, you know. So like if you had a bunch of men, let's just think let's just think in Irish terms, right? All the lads who play GAA, right? And there's a whole team of them. And if they're all asked like how many of you would like to do yoga after training, I'd say maybe one brave soul would put their hand up, but most of them won't put their hand up because they're like, oh yeah, that's probably for women, right?
yeah, I don't even think that brave soul would put his hand up. He'd
Maybe
probably be
maybe
standing there
not.
being
Yeah, it's like
like,
don't look at me. But yeah,
I know.
it's so silly the way a lot of men like just think like, oh, I can't go to yoga, I shouldn't go to Pilates. There's certain things like
Yeah.
that's not what men do, which is so stupid, like if you think about it. But
Mm.
like there's so much positivity and like good things you can get. Like I've heard of some examples of like let's say professional rugby players and stuff, and they go to do some yoga classes, and obviously like they're getting great benefits from it, but a lot of the other guys just won't go because of they think that I can't go to it, you know. But
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
suppose be gradually something that changes the same way therapy for men will probably gradually change as well. Hopefully anyway.
Yeah. I think it's just a matter of I want to start like when I kind of really start getting everything up and running properly, like I want to start taking things in like, a focus of men's classes with yoga and breath and create that space because I know myself like the amount of classes that I've gone to or workshops and I could probably, count on like, both hands how many times I was the only man in the room. And I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. It doesn't bother me, but I do get that for other men that are like, oh God, like I was the only lad and I was sweating
Yeah.
and I think there's different dynamics to that which you could dive into. We won't do it today, but like I just think for lads they find it hard to go to something new. And then if it's just women, they might feel very intimidated by it, that kind of way. So but I'm
Makes
just like, just go, just try it. Like you'll actually realize the people in the class are so lovely and they're so welcoming and you know, it's about being on the mat. That's the thing about classes. It's not about I need to like be, whoever over in the corner to take a stand on their head. I'm gonna try. Just go and be present on the mat and move and enjoy yourself. I think if that's where you started with the basics and then learned everything else, I think you'd enjoy it. Like
Yeah, for sure. And like obviously for me over the last few years, I've really specialized in working with women and I work solely with women. There's still maybe one or two guys that I work with here and there, but it's not something that I advertise or anything like that. So it's been like 99% women, which has been great. So I'm sure anyone who's listening is like, oh, maybe I could get my husband to maybe join, a yoga class, or I could get my partner to come along to do something. It might be a bit of an uphill battle for you, but
yeah,
it's possible, but they might just be a bit resistant to it. But maybe
yeah,
hopefully at some point, you can rope them into it for sure. Um,
yeah. I feel like that's usually the way in. It's like the wife will bring the husband, and I'm like, we're getting there. We're getting through.
yeah, slowly but surely. Nice, good stuff. So it'd be good to I know we wrote up a few topics before this, and it'd be good to maybe switch gears for a second and go through maybe a common fitness myth, maybe like one or two. And one we kind of discussed before was, discussing the misconception that weight training makes you quote unquote bulky and how it actually helps with fat loss, longevity, overall well-being. And, I think it's a really good one to bring up because I think there's still a lot of people who do believe like, oh, if I go to the gym or if I train from home or if I do any strength related training, that it is going to give me that bulky look. And it's just not the case. Obviously, what actually is going to happen is that you're going to get stronger. Um, you're going to tone up, especially if, you are pretty dialed in with your food and you're sleeping well. And so there's going to be so many benefits that you're going to get from it. Um, but that's, I suppose, going to be a misconception that someone kind of has to, once they start training, they see results, they'll realize like, oh yeah, I'm not going to get bulky. But yeah, have you heard that from a good few people?
Yeah, like I'd find that with like consultation calls and stuff, people that sign up to work with you and like if and I'm not singling them out, but if it's a girl, that is probably one of the first major questions that I get. They're like, if I start lifting really heavy and stuff, will I get really bulky. And I'm like, I'm explaining to them the amount of food that they need to eat first of all to even get anywhere close to that. I think when you actually dial it back and you explain about how to put on muscle, they actually really fully understand. They're like, oh, like I'm like, you're this height, this age, this weight, whatever, you're not suddenly going to be like, Arnold Schwarzenegger after 6 weeks. Like, don't worry, and
Mm.
same with the lads as well. Some lads are preferred to be like leaner. You have a couple of lads working with me that like, look, they love their holidays. They go away and they do the whole clubbing scene and everything, which is deadly, but they don't want to be jacked going away. They'd rather just be lean and toned in themselves. And like, that's where you need to have the education for people. You need to be able to have those conversations to explain, well, look, you can get there if that's what you want. But someone comes to me and they say, I just want to tone up. You need to have that education behind how to give that plan to them, the foods, the meal plan, whatever it is, so that they will appreciate their training and they will enjoy it. And they don't come to you, and kind of go, I'm actually starting to feel a bit bulky here. And you're like, well, you're not. But, that's a whole other conversation. But like, education is the main thing. I think that's to anyone out there that's thinking about doing online coaching or in-person coaching, really understand what you're doing first and don't give out information if you're not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like, I think with strength training, especially, there's so many other benefits to it because a lot of women, that we work with are, mostly in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
Mhm.
And the biggest health issue for most women across the board is either osteopenia or osteoporosis. As soon as they are coming towards menopause or in the first, like 5 to 10 years,
Mhm.
once they're actually in menopause, or some people call it post-menopause. It's essentially the same thing. Um, and so osteopenia, osteoporosis are very severe conditions, and a lot of people have it. And one of the amazing things I've seen recently, so I had a lady who she gets DEXA scans every 2 years, and over the last year, she's been implementing a lot of strength training. She's super consistent now. She's literally like A1, she's training like 3 or 4 times a week. She does lots of steps. She eats perfectly, gets lots of sleep, but she's actually reversed osteopenia in her L3, L4 in her lower back over
Amazing.
the last year. And her scores, they brought her from an osteopenia into a normal range. And she didn't believe it at first, so she got her doctor to check it. She got her physio to check it. I had a look through it, and it was like she couldn't believe it. Because a lot of people think that like, oh, if I do get osteopenia or osteoporosis, then there's nothing I can do about it. So this is actually one of the longevity wise, if you're really serious about being able to do whatever you want, live your life, go on holidays, travel, like you said earlier, pick up stuff without be worried about having, back pain, strength training, even like twice a week for 30 minutes, 3 times a week for 30 minutes. If you do that consistently, those are the type of results that you're going to get. And then obviously in the short term, it's going to help you feel leaner, feel stronger, feel better in your clothes. You can't go wrong with it. It's just a case, like you said, if you're working with someone that has the knowledge that they can guide you through that process so that you don't get injured and you have a plan that works for you. And, really important that you're doing exercises that suit you as well. Because obviously a lot of people can't, like for me, I don't do like high bar squats anymore because of where I tore the cartilage in my knee. So I do like Bulgarian split squats, or I'll do seated knee extensions. So a lot of people will have that same thing. You've probably seen that in a lot of the classes that you've been running that, you just kind of need to cater for people based off, what kind of works for them. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the aspect of coaching. And I think when you actually dial it back, and like, that's such an amazing achievement and such amazing win that you had with your client, and like, but you had the know-how to give her the tools to get to where she needed to get to, which is such a lovely, rewarding thing. And I think when you just dial it back and you realize I'm just dealing with a different human being here who has X, Y, and Z, and you just give them the exercises that they enjoy and doesn't complicate anything. It's I'm not saying it's that simple, but sometimes it actually is. It's just listening to what the person's telling you and helping them with what they need. So
mhm. Yeah, for sure. And like the biggest thing really is just consistency because like you've probably seen over the years, a lot of people will maybe do something for 4 weeks or 8 weeks, and they might even get great results for that time frame, but then they stop for whatever reason. Maybe they lost motivation, they weren't really dialed in. So this is maybe an interesting tangent we could go on. A lot of the time when people lose motivation, it's not because you actually needed motivation in the first place, it's because you weren't dialed in on what your whys are, why this is really important for you to have as a lifestyle, and why is that so important for you, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so for whatever reason, a lot of people kind of fall off the wagon, as a lot of people call it, and then they just don't have that consistency. They don't get those results. So
And I think that's the thing of it as well. Like I try with everybody that comes on board, I try and just teach them habits in the first 4 weeks alongside their training, alongside meal planning, if that's obviously what they want. And I try to keep it as real as possible. Like, I mean, I have clients, as I said, they like to go away on holidays, like a few drinks. Some people like their certain sweet treats, which we all do. Like, we're only human. We're not training for the Olympics unless you are, so fair play. But like, it's just about, like Sean always has a great quote, and she's like, motion changes emotion. And like it does. Like if you're having a bad day and you go out for a walk and you come back 20 minutes later, you're like, I feel great, right? I can take on the day again. Your head is clear. And sometimes that's all how simple it is. It's just movement. And then as we then have the education to give the extra better tools to really complement what they want to achieve. But I agree with you in terms of I think when people sign up to a 4 week thing, I think we've been so built now to have like your Spotify's, your Netflixes, and we're on that monthly subscription. Whereas I think when you actually sign up to a longevity of a 12-week program or 16-week program or whatever it is, it's actually better because you actually get so much more from it and you'll get so much more amazing results in the long term. And then at the end of the 16 weeks, you're buzzing to go again because you're like, oh my God, like I don't even recognize that person from when I started. Like, so
yeah, no, for sure. That's something I've actually shifted as part of the evolution of what I offer in coaching and stuff like that. I used to do 4 week, 8 week programs, but then after a while I realized that, like, if when I look back at everyone that I've ever worked with, the people who were really consistent, and really consistent just means 2 workouts a week on average for 30 minutes, maybe 3 workouts a week for 30 minutes, but at least twice a week on average. Some weeks were one, some weeks were three, averages out at two. When they were consistent with that for about 6 to 12 months, the people, especially who committed to a year, like, they got unbelievable results. Like, I had a call with the lady yesterday. We're just going back over everything. We worked together for 11 months. She's literally lost, like, I think it was a stone and a half. She's lost two clothes sizes. She was like, the amount of compliments I'm after getting off so many people is unreal. I feel so good in my clothes. My energy is higher. She's way stronger. All of her numbers went up with everything. She's more flexible. Her sleep is better. She's done a lot of work on her boundaries, where now she's got extra confidence now, so she finds it easier to say no to the things that she needs to say no to. But then on the plus
good,
side, she finds it easier to say yes to things that she knows she should do. So,
good.
like, all of these kind of results, but that would have never happened over 4 weeks or 8 weeks because there's just not enough time to go through all of those different areas. So now what I actually do is get minimum term for us to work together is 4 months.
Hmm.
It's either 4 months, 6 months, or 12 months. And it's always the people who commit over that longer time frame that get really, really, life-changing results. Which
Yeah.
that's a term a lot of people throw around, but because I've seen it over and over again, it's like so cool to see. So I think if you do want to do something, um, just realize that you can get results in the short term. But if you really
Mm.
look at, like, yourself, who do you want to be a year from now? If you can visualize who that person is, that's going to be something that really, makes a massive change. I think that's, super powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like I totally agree with you. And I think in the long run of it all, like that investment, I know it's financial. I know sometimes it's like, oh, do I want to pay that amount of money? But it's like when you actually see what you can get from it, like health wise, mental health wise, physical, spiritual, obviously, if that's what you're doing as well, if you're working with me. But like, it's like it just pays off. Like it just pays off. And then when you coincide that with like, therapy or all these other aspects, like when you actually dial it back and you look at, well, what am I actually spending money on? You're probably spending money on your Netflix subscription or you're getting that takeaway or whatever it is, which is fine once a month or whatever. But when you actually add all that up and you kind of go, well, I actually could have put that into developing me and my fitness and my health and how much better, as you said, like after that amount of months you will be, and you'll look back and go, I
Yeah.
actually don't even recognize that person anymore. I don't remember that life. I'm now in a place where I'm active, I'm sleeping well, I feel more confident, my clothes fit better. Like when I'm working with clients, I try and get them to not focus too much on the scale because obviously, yourself, numbers fluctuate so much. But something like that, a massive win is I had a t-shirt like, 4 weeks ago, it didn't fit me. Now it feels looser. Or like I try and say to some of my clients, pick out an outfit, pick out something you really want to fit into, try it on after 4 weeks. How does it feel? 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And they're like, oh my God, Jesus, like, I'm putting on these jeans or whatever and I feel amazing. And you're like,
Yeah.
there's your win. There's your win. What do you feel better now? I feel great. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
buzzing now. I feel so much positive. I feel happier. People are complimenting me, and you're like, it works. The power works. It's
Exactly. Yeah, I
yeah,
think the financial side of things is so funny because I know many people, 1,000 euro Gucci handbag, easy.
yeah.
800 euro Moncler jacket, 900 euro a month direct debit for their brand new Mercedes. It's like great if you want to have a brand new Mercedes, fine, but realistically, when you're 85 and you're looking back on the stuff that you spent on your entire life, are you going to A, regret the brand new Mercedes, or are you going to regret not investing more in your health because now you're in a really bad position because you never prioritized it, you
Yeah,
know? Like I know
yeah.
someone who it cost them 20 grand because they literally never took care of themselves. Someone close to me, so I know them very, very well.
Mm,
It cost them 20 grand. They never took care of themselves, just working all the time, lower back issues started to get worse and worse. Ended up having to get surgery. Long story short, surgery cost 10 grand between hospital stay, the cost of the surgery itself, medication. Had to take, uh, there was 3, almost 4 months off work.
mm,
Didn't get paid for any of that. So the total cost was 20 grand for that. And a lot
yeah.
of that could have been avoided. And I know her lower back pain is gone now completely because she's been doing yoga actually,
Oh, good.
more strength work like once or twice a week.
Mm,
And a lot of those issues are gone now. So it's like you could potentially save yourself 20 grand down the line just by taking care of yourself now, or
yeah.
instead of the brand new Mercedes that's 900 a month on the credit card, maybe you just get a slightly older Mercedes or
Yeah.
Peugeot or something that's like 300 a month. And it's like you could have reinvested that money into your health, whatever, with yoga, with personal training, with working with us potentially, with doing something for yourself, something that you enjoy. It could be something different, maybe a running club or maybe whatever you like to do. But it's just a lot of people spend money in places that when you look back in the future you might be like, oh yeah, I probably didn't spend that the wisest.
No, very
Another
true.
example, actually, I can think off the top of my head, had a consultation with a lady recently. And fair play to her as well. She decided to quit smoking, and I think she said she's been off the last like month or two, but she said she had done her numbers and realized that she's saving 450 a month just from quitting smoking.
That's insane.
Yeah. Like 450 a month, that's, you can afford a lot of things with that. If you reinvest that into your health, even half of that into your health, that's in the long run going to make a huge
Yeah,
difference.
that's the
So,
difference. Like if you can extend out your life frame, your time frame, like that's just my
yeah.
God, that's how much money a month.
Yeah, crazy. So, no, I was really delighted to hear that she did that. It's going to make a huge difference for her, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, so it'd be good to, I think we'll finish off by just going through stuff about, building a lifestyle of freedom, balance. You'd mentioned this before, we'd talk maybe about some of your personal goals, maybe your vision for Miller Fitness, what you'd like to do going forward and how you're working towards that and maybe some traveling and stuff like that. So
Yeah, all the nice things. Yeah, like I think kind of going forward, like as I said at the start, kind of like the financial freedom is probably the massive one. Like I think it's not even about being like, I want to be rich. Like we all want that, but I think it's just being realistic and saying, like even me, like personally, like I am 33, I'm maybe 34. I'm still living at home. I can't move out and rent in Ireland at the moment because it's just so bad. And like, we just got back recently from Lisbon, and like now I'm looking at like maybe I'll go live in Lisbon for 6 months because it's actually cheaper, and
yeah,
it's just actually bonkers. Like, and I think kind of the long term goals, like Shauna qualifies next year, so when she gets her kind of like everything together and we start figuring out what we want to do, we probably will go off and travel for a while and kind of go. When you, I feel like when you leave Ireland, you actually kind of go, my God, there's a whole world out there, and it's just madness. And like I think in terms of Miller Fitness, like I just really wanted to grow. I really wanted to do well. And I just really want to be like a beacon for people that like they know they can come to a safe space that they'll get, like what you're doing as well. They'll get quality training, they'll get sustainable programs, they'll work with someone who actually genuinely cares. And they're not just like, here's a 12-week transformation. Okay, go on off and do your photo shoot. Now you have an eating disorder. I don't want to know you anymore. And it's about creating that healthy focus and kind of taking the aspects of social media out of it where all these different shows that are out there telling you need to look a certain way and all this nonsense. Like it's you should be beautiful in who you are and how you look, and if you want to look a certain way, fine, and if we can help you in a safe, supportive way, we will. I think my major kind of goal is when me and Shauna really do get up and running, we want to actually build a really beautiful holistic center. And we want to bring fitness and therapy and saunas and ice baths and everything all under the one roof. I think that'd be really something amazing. I'd love to achieve in like the next maybe like 10 years. And fingers crossed. But yeah, like I'm really excited to see where things go. Like I'm loving even on the hard days, I'm loving life. I'm loving where I'm at. And like ever since I started this journey, I haven't looked back, not once, like to the old life I had. And I think from everything that I'm doing and the people that I'm helping and the client results that I've gotten, the testimonials I've received, the messages I still get from people that don't even work with me anymore. And like simple little things that are just like I want to thank you again for changing my life. And I go to the gym every day now. I used to be terrified to go, and it's just if you can give someone that little ray of sunshine or that little hope or confidence built into their life, like what you've done as well, I just think you're really helping. And I think that little bit of kindness can just go a long way in terms of longevity, life. If they have kids and they can pick up their kids, they can run around, whatever it is. I think if I can create that, space for people with coaching or yoga or healing or whatever it is, it's nice to know that, you found your place and people come to you because, you're good, number one, at what you do at, but number two, you create that safe environment.
yeah, no, definitely. It all sounds really good. And I think, yeah, anyone who's moved away from Ireland, they can see how different it is because any of the indexes that I've looked through, Ireland is literally always in the top three of the most expensive places to live, either worldwide or in Europe. Like just unbelievable. And like I remember looking through different prices in Spain. Like when I lived in Barcelona, I had a one bedroom apartment and it was 800 a month. And when I lived in Dublin, I had one bedroom for 800. That was it, sharing with like five other people, which is insane. And then when I moved to Palermo in Sicily, I had a full apartment for myself, two bedrooms, two bathrooms, two balconies, a living room, a big table, way more than I needed, but it was literally like 900 a month. And when you leave Ireland and see how much is out there, like I looked up before, I think it was in Valencia and some other smaller kind of cities in Spain, you can literally get an apartment for like 400 to 600 a month, you know.
Yeah.
And in Ireland now, nearly anywhere in Ireland, especially in Dublin, you can't even get an apartment. One, because they're not available, but then if somewhere is available, it's like 1,800 a month for a one bedroom apartment, or it's just like crazy stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So, I definitely think a move for you like that is going to be really exciting for sure. And you can still work with lots of people because for anyone listen to this who hasn't been working with myself or Robbie or maybe Finn or someone else on my team, like the thing is everything we do is via Zoom. So it doesn't matter. Like as of right now, I have a lady who lives in Florida that I work with. There's people across Europe. There's one lady that lives in France, one lady that goes back and forth between Ireland and Germany. A lot of people obviously based in Ireland, different parts of Ireland. So it doesn't even matter what part of the world that you're in, because we can literally
Mhm.
just everything we do is via Zoom and you can get support that way. And you don't have to go to a gym if you don't like doing it that way because we just provide all the support between one-to-ones, the classes, yoga, meditation. So you're not limited by location, which is, really the way forward. Since it's 2025, we don't have to keep the gym is great, but it's not something that's necessary, So be good to I think we finish up there for today.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much.
All right, sounds good. I suppose just to finish up, if you're interested in working with myself, working with Robbie, what I'll do is I'll pop down a link below where you can book in a free consultation. Then we'd be able to have a chat and we can figure out what your goals are, anything that you might be struggling with. We'll come up with a bit of a plan. And then after that, we can let you know exactly kind of how the program works, what's involved. And yeah, those would be the next steps if you're interested. In terms of social media, Robbie, where is the best place for everyone to find you?
Probably Instagram at the moment because I'm still trying to build a new website. It's a work in progress.
Perfect. Is it just Miller Fitness, or what's the best way to get you?
Just Miller Fitness with an extra S at the end because someone had already stolen the original one. So
No worries. Sounds good. Good stuff. Well, I'll end the recording here and we can chat after.
awesome.